how well is known the fact among central bankers that majority of money is created by commercial banks? Do most of them know this fact but cover it? That's the question.
Well, I think that they know, but they cannot show the problems. The central banks have the feeling, the prudent feeling of knowing that now, as most of the money is in the hands of banks, and it's a fragile money, and the possibility we have seen with the regional banks in last spring, in 23, or the Credit Suisse crisis is there. And in fact, they are helping the banks a lot. Because, for instance, now very few people know that in Europe, Eurozone and the Federal Reserve, the banks are receiving a lot of subsidies, fiscal subsidies, through the central banks, because they are paying the deposit. The commercial banks' money that is deposited, is the reserves, is remunerated by the central banks with 4% or whatever. No? In Europe, every year the ECB is transferring 140,000 million euros, and probably in the States is higher because the interest rate that paid the Fed was higher. Well, that is important subsidy because it's paid by the taxpayers with less income received by the central bank. But why? Because if you take that out, you could have a crisis. I mean, the reaction, I think, healthy of the central bankers is to avoid crisis and to solve crisis, whatever is necessary. You have seen, for instance, in regional banks in Silicon Valley Bank, what happens? They started, and in one night, it was a meeting of the Fed, the FDIC, and the Treasury, and they launched a lot of subsidies. They increased ad infinitum the deposit insurance. They created a new facility to avoid and avoid any problem of crisis. They even accepted to use as collateral not by the price market but the historical prices. I mean, all these things are, well, we are going to do everything, and people should know that we are going to do everything to avoid a crisis and to avoid that the people is going to suffer. And I think this is important because the banking crises are destructive. I remember when I was governor and we had the banking crisis of 2008 and that one minister of one government says, well, you are helping the banks, you are using many money. It was true. We spent, well, the government, no, I helped the government to spend 60,000 million euros to save a small bank. And I say, well, yes, that is, in principle, is absurd. The banks were profiting, and now we are saving them, we are bailing out. But if you don't bail out, it would be a disaster. No country in the world allow to not to bail out their banks. No country in the world. Why? Because it's worse. It's better that banks receive subsidies. It's better to bail out, because if you don't do that, that's right. What our interest is not having the possibility to have crisis. But as far as we have a system based in a risky asset, like deposits, central banks, the obligation is to avoid the crisis and save immediately all the type of crisis.